Alright, well, I think we are actually ready for the semifinals map pool.
You are.
Are you boys ready for this? There's some good stuff in here.
Yeah, I'm ready, man.
Excellent. Well, I will leave you to that. Enjoy the showcase, guys.
All right. So yeah, we're getting into this next map pool now. We're going to be starting off, as always, with the no mod maps. The first map is going to be Resurrection Spell by Muya on the Volcano difficulty. Do you want to talk about this one for us? Or have you not played this one?
Oh, yeah, right. I did actually play it, thank God. So I do have something prepared. But Resurrection is going to be a really interesting pick as it is approach rate 10. So while we did have in the last pool a lot of focus on approach rate 8, we do this time around have an approach rate 10 not like the last time we only had it in 3 mod. So this is forcing everyone to go approach rate 10 on a unsuspecting kind of pick, but this is stream happen. It's pretty much 180 BPM streams throughout the song, or at least the beginning, which is the death streaming part. Then we have a section of just jumps, and then some 1/3 streams actually, which is gonna make it a lot trickier than what we were expected to be, because it is only 9, so it's actually a fairly high overall difficulty. So that's something to look out for. Plus there's a bunch of choke potential or just miss potential at the end because of the build-up, and the last stream for some reason is 200 BPM, which is, if you're not prepared, gonna drop the accuracy and might give some like last minutes and score differences.
Yeah, I can see this one being decided a lot by accuracy, but yeah, some of those patterns at the end, the jump patterns are particularly nasty. But yeah, just streams are the order of the day on this one. There's one of a 3 stream as well in the middle that can be tricky. I can see a lot of people being more aching to single tap that as opposed to alternate it. Some of the more speed oriented players. I wonder how that's going to play out.
Indeed, but I believe most people are gonna try to at least alternate it and try to make it properly. But it is definitely an accuracy pick, and but these jump hands are not to be underestimated. They definitely can bring you to a miss. But after the last build-up at the end and the stream, that's pretty much the map in a nutshell. It's not as technical as other maps in the pool.
All right, then that is the first one. The next map in the no mod pool is going to be Thunder Cider. It's the alternation map of the pool. Tutu Haha is the mapper on Cider difficulty. This one is approach rate 9, circle size 4, overall difficulty of 8. Pretty standard settings. 145 BPM, but with this being an alternation style map, lots of single taps in strange patterns that force you to sort of alternate patterns that are spaced like things you tap, but because of the super high speed of it, you play them like spaced streams, really wide space streams. This one has some tricky pentagon patterns in it, I believe. Lots and lots of streams at that BPM. Again, it's one of the things that I'll talk about when the other alternation maps appeared, is the choice between single tapping them and alternating them being an important factor when you pick this strategically.
Indeed, because single tapping might give you better consistency on these kind of picks, because single tapping sequences aren't too long, right? So you can comfortably single tap them. How is your personal experience on these kind of maps by single tapping versus alternating?
I do prefer to single tap maps like this, just because fast single tapping I find easier to snap to notes as opposed to alternating. That's just me. I know a lot of people, most people alternate this, but I know certain players prefer one or the other.
Indeed, and that's gonna be the alternating pick for this pool. It might not be as, such a build up as Scarlet Roses, where you have a decent beginning and middle part, but then you have the ending pretty much having a spike. This one is pretty box standard in terms of difficulty all around. It's kind of averaged out for the entire map, but you pretty much have a jump in spike from time to time, not really at a specific time, but rather just randomly. where you can easily miss on this spot. If you, for example, alternating with other you on top of your cursor control point, and if you're single tapping, you know, just get your reading on top of the of your game, and you should be fine on this one.
Yeah, I think that's the big point on this one. Those little jumps that appear while you're busy trying to snap to each of those like notes, having to deal with jumps as well. It's all about finger control, all about aim control, and that's the difficulty spike on it.
Indeed. I can imagine this getting picked by maps like Taiwan, for example, once again, having the kind of two-man carry, and teams along the lines of that. But I don't think it will really get picked or for players could potentially see it and stuff, because it's a little bit too volatile, I believe.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think I see China picking this a lot as well. Players like Rust Bell and all that will do really well on this. I do have to be honest, I feel like in terms of the sort of the obligatory alternation map of the pool, I think Scarlet Rose was more volatile than this one, but we'll see how it plays out.
Indeed. But that was the Thunder Cider, the alternation map, or the single type map of the pool. And next we do have Yo Legends, I believe, which is going to be an interesting map in this case, because it is the hard map of the map pool, pretty much. That's what I would call it. It has jumps, it has streams, it has jumps. I didn't mention it has jumps. Pretty much the whole package. And next to that, it has some interesting patterns, as in the sliders towards the end are really weirdly timed, so they're a little bit longer than you'd expect, and have a pretty intricate rhythm in there. So you definitely have to watch out for that one. Dropping some accuracy on there is almost to be expected. And then you have a huge spike in just jumps at the end, which you definitely need to look out for in this map. Some other things to note on is that it's 205 BPM. The streams aren't too long, so you don't really need to be best of stamina to be able to beat this one, but at least you need some mastery all over the streams, because you do have OD9 on it. And I believe this might be either a really popular pick or just, you know, set aside, just like the isolation pick in the previous stage of the tournament.
Yeah, this one definitely seems like it's a very all-around map. One we'll see quite a bit next week, I bet. Because, of course, yeah, those streams are fairly high BPM, but they're not too high. 205 BPM is something at this point players will be okay with. And those jumps mostly are in simple patterns, but there are some really tricky slider patterns, as Forz mentioned, and at the end it becomes especially intense. But overall, this map is a very all-around pick, just a very difficult mechanical test.
Kind of bringing this one to be the standard one, but we've got plenty of interesting maps to bear, so get your seats ready.
There we go. Next one is going to be, and I'm going to try and pronounce this to the best of my ability. I'm going to try. This is a Liku-at map. Yoto Kubinashi no Kamikakushi. Yeah, that's it. This is a QB map on Oko's extra difficulty, which I believe is the one just below the hardest. This is the speed no mod map at approach rate 9.6, circle size 4, overall difficulty of 9, a bit above average. Sorry, 8.3, sorry, circle size 4.3. But the big thing about this one is it's at 240 BPM, very speed focused. Some not too wide jumps, but lots of jumps that constantly change direction. And because of that speed, definitely tests your high speed aim. The approach rate is the same as if you used an approach rate 8 map and added hard double time. So that kind of thing is common ground for a lot of players. But it's all about dealing with those high speed patterns.
Indeed, and it's actually funny that you mentioned this, that the approach is like approach at 8 in double time, because that's exactly the kind of comparison I really wanted to make on this map. It pretty much feels like an older map, or like an easier map on an insane, or like 4 stars in double time, because you do see kind of repeating the kind of spacing, same spacing all throughout the map, which reminds you of a push late double timer in that case. And the streams and the bursts aren't too long. It's like a double time map on Nomad, so you can definitely look out for that one.
So the patterns themselves are fairly simple. Not too many pattern gimmicks here. Just dealing with that speed and lots of those bursts. Just like I say, it feels like an old school DT map, this one. I can see it being picked quite a bit.
Indeed. And the next one is going to be one of the more interesting maps in the map pool. That's one thing I thought was missing from the last map pool, and they added it to this one and just completely went ham on it. Because we do have a Function Phantom map, which is going to tell you a lot about it already. I mean, it's gonna be pretty chaotic and slider heavy. But then you look closer and you see it is Euclid by far the map by far, and he's I think here most of you guys should probably know him for his really insane slider maps. He definitely has some of them, and then he just kind of used that mapping style on this one, and it's absolutely fantastic. And so is the storyboard. I've just got that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when I was recording this, I'd never seen this map before, and I love the storyboard. It is a lot flashier than storyboards I'm used to, but it is still awesome.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to shout out Exile Minus for that one. He's the storyboard creator for this one. And the map itself, which is gonna be the relevant thing for the players, it is, as you see, really slider heavy, and on OD9, having these kind of chaotic rhythms, it's just absolutely insane. This is gonna be a really hard pick, but it's one of these, once again, carry picks where you have like players who are really good at it and believe in them to kind of do this. This is not a map you really expect someone to always see it. There's so many possibilities to miss on. You have like just the insane slider velocities, which means that the sliders are really fast. And then you have sometimes it changing, so you go from fast to slow. And then you have the space streams, sometimes going to break your combo in between the fast sliders. And it just is gonna get even more insane at the end. And that's just gonna be the really interesting pick for me, at least, to watch out for in this pool. Or perhaps the most banned one.
Yeah, I love this map as well. This kind of map is the thing I just like to play when I'm just chilling. It's just so much fun. But yeah, in terms of a tournament, it's an incredibly difficult one. One will see many slider ends dropped. Let me look at this. Once you hit this point, it's incredibly difficult to keep combo unless you're a specialist on this sort of thing. So this is the one where those power players are going to come out and shine, I bet. And that's storyboard though.
Oh yeah, indeed.
Let's hope no one forgets to turn it off, because that's going to tank your frame rate.
Tank your frame rate, and it's definitely gonna kill your reading if you actually don't have any kind of background dim on.
Well, even if you have it on, it'd still tank your frame rate a bit.
Indeed,
I would love to see a World Cup where you have to have them at like 30% with storyboards and videos.
Oh yeah, just force it on in the client. There you go.
Yeah, it's like it's forcibly set to those settings and you can't change it.
The tournament client by Peppy, just a standard exe which only connects to the tournament server and doesn't allow you any change of the background in. That would be really interesting.
No one would get SS's, like everyone would just tank accuracy.
Alright, okay. The final no-mod map is going to be Piranha, Mafalda Reloaded Trap remix by Jalapeno Martins, or a remix of an Jalapeno Martins tune, I believe. This is a Blue Dragon map, a guest difficulty by Blue Dragon. This one is a pure mechanical test. It's all jumps all the time. No reading, frippery, barely any streams. There's a few at the end, but this is all down to dealing with very wide jumps all the way through the map. The numbers on this one, it's going to be approach rate 9.3, circle size 4, overall difficulty of 8.3. Beats per minute of 171, so very standard. A very long map. This one is over 4 minutes. So you could call it a consistency test because of its simple nature. But the extremity rather of the jumps is less down to consistency and more like just who has the best aim of your team. That's pretty much what this one comes down to.
Indeed, and to add to that, the beginning is the part where you definitely want to build up your combo, because that's where these jumps are the most forgiving, because they're not as high spaced as it gets towards the end. Along the lines of 600-700 combo, it's gonna get even more crazy and intense at the end, and it's just gonna have a full just blown out spike at the end with just left-right full screen jumps. But the thing to note is the short little whoop part at the middle, or like the 300 combo mark, which can tank your accuracy if you're not used to it, because it's a little bit weird in the song that it kind of blocks out any kind of music really, and is really prevalent. That's at least in my opinion of playing it. So some people might drop some accuracy there, but at the end, as you said, jumps, jumps, and jumps.
There is some patterning going on that could mess around with some players. Lots of squares, as is traditional for a Blue Dragon map, and near the end, of course, lots of back and forths at screen jump level. The ending gets pretty damn nasty with the jumps.
Indeed, I can imagine not really 4-way Cs, but like 4-way almost a Cs with pretty high combos because of building up them at the beginning, but then losing them at the end because that's pretty much where the hard part is. And it kind of adds to your nervousness if you like have a really high combo and that was on the easy part, and then suddenly the hard part comes in and is going to completely destroy you because you did not expect it or did not really want to go that far out of your comfort aim zone.
You're seeing the ending now where it really picks up. Rip the SS, poor Skystar. Couldn't quite lock it out.
Would have been expected if this wasn't an SS or even an FC. I believe he's gonna miss at the end the left-right patterns. Or before that. Might also be a possibility because he just did.
Well done. Oh dear. You even jinx in pre-recorded videos, how can you do that?
Damn. Well, it didn't unfortunately work against the USA, but you know, it just kind of is the way it is.
Yeah, the ending just gets incredibly intense. As Forrest said, expecting combos to this point, and then this being the bit that decides it.
Yeah, that would be pretty hard on your nerves, to be honest. But then going to the next pick, we are gonna see Hidden, because that was the last Nomad map. The Hidden map, the first one is going to be Streaming Hard, which is 210 BPM, and it's the Val 018. No, wait, it's the. One moment, I completely botched up my notes, because it is the Well 0108 difficulty. I was right the first time. I shouldn't doubt myself.
You got this, man. You got this.
I was like, wait a second. I've seen the Karen SK version played so many times. Did so many tournaments. I was like, wait, am I sure this is the Well 0108 map? Well, yeah, it is. This one pretty much 210 BPM Steering Hard. It's mostly a focus on aim patterns, pretty much as big spacing as the last map, on 210 BPM. You do have some streams here and there, which you should pay attention to. And you pretty much have a combo build-up between the PI times, the recurrence of the songs, and then you have the pretty much like explosion in the PI times respectively. You have two PI times, which are gonna be the main focus or attractions for the players, because it's the hardest part. It's gonna be the most likely to miss there, as we did see Sky Standards on it. And well, that's just pretty much the map in itself. Hidden, really hard, and that's pretty much the name of the game.
It's a Valve map, so it's going to be full of jumps in patterns and geometric shapes. It's what he likes to do. There are quite a few like burst streams, like 5 to 7 note streams, that immediately go into super fast short sliders that go in the opposite direction. That kind of thing can really mess you up. But yeah, and once you hit the Ki times, as Thor said, it goes mental with the pattern jumps. Lots of squares and triangles and back and forth, all sorts, constantly switching between all of these things. It is somewhat of a, well, I wouldn't say it was a reading challenge, but those kind of notes are tricky to snap to, and doing that with hidden is the tricky part with this. I'd say this one is quite safe though, apart from that, in terms of the hidden pool. It's quite an all-rounded map outside of that, and I can see it being picked a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I can see it being picked by people who are comfortable on hidden and don't really want to go for this. This is pretty much the hidden at 1 in this case. I can imagine some picks on Nomad, for example, like Liquor, being really popular among teams like South Korea, perhaps, or Brazil even. I mean, the speed demons themselves. So be careful, Doomsday.
Oh yeah.
Ban or face it head on.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here taking a few notes here and there. Gotta get it right. But yeah, that's this. The speed is gonna be ideal for those speed players. All right, then the next hidden, the second and final one of the pool is going to be Saigo. It's a roomier map on final difficulty. The numbers on this one are going to be approach rate 9.4, circle size 4, overall difficulty of 8.5, beats per minute at 200. This is a pretty much just a reading challenge. Very tricky technical map, this one. Lots of stacked notes, interspersed, lots of fast sliders here and there. Just about dealing with those overlaps, and overlaps are the Achilles heel of a player that struggles on hidden.
Indeed, as you said, it is the reading pick, but it's not as brutal as the previous maps in terms of reading. It's pretty much having this part of reading and then adding a bunch of star rating difficulty to it. Because you have like the spikes, as you mentioned, which just increase the star rating by quite a lot. Just the 1-2 jumps, for example, up down jumps, which is like just a joke on this heaven for most players. So I don't really see this map being picked too often. It might be too much of a risk for most people.
Certainly not as safe as streaming hard, I'd say. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's not approach rate 8, so thankfully people don't have to deal with an approach rate 8 hidden in this pool, but yeah, nevertheless, it's how you deal with those spikes and dealing with those jumps.
Indeed, and it's pretty long at that. I mean, it's 3 minutes and 30 seconds long, so we're just gonna add even more salt into the wound if you manage to pick this and miss on it, because it is absolutely brutal how to kill it. This is one of the harder maps in the Mappools, in my opinion. Also, some interesting facts is if you actually see this on hidden and accessible to pretty much #1 on the map. And worldwide there are only 7 hidden FCs and 2 hard FCs. So actually people do prefer hidden on it, because obviously with some hard it's going to be even more difficult. But just seeing it on normal is going to net you an easy top 50, even if you have about 95% of this. So that just showcases how hard the map itself is.
Wow, well, to be fair, this map hasn't been ranked very long, so that probably explains why there wasn't many scores on it, but it is a very difficult one. I mean, there's no hidden hard rock on that map at all yet, which is fairly uncommon. So it is a difficult one.
And looking at the top 50, pretty much seeing names you're used to seeing in high level play generally. But you know, this played in a tournament setting is gonna, you know, just step up the notch even further, because people are already perhaps struggling with seeing this on normal, and some people might see this as an easy normal to see in a few tries, but having this on hidden in a tournament setting is gonna be really tough.
That was the last hidden. Getting on to the hard rocks now. Do you want to talk about this one, Forz, or? I do like this one though. I wouldn't mind talking about this. I'm just gonna go here.
No problem.
Oh, sick. Alright, I'll go on for this. Yeah, EOS. Many people who play a lot of OS know of this one. It's incredibly popular. By the artist Ginkiha, an Alacat map on Licorice difficulty. The numbers on this one: approach rate 10, circle size 6.5. Overall difficulty of 10 with a BPM of 175, very normal. This is the CS 6.5 pick, the small circle pick. Fairly average in length, it's just under 2.5 minutes. This one has fairly simple patterns in terms of reading, but it has some pretty tricky jumps that constantly change direction, some streams that vary in spacing throughout. It's all about dealing with those tricky spaced patterns on such a low CS. Of course, we have had Yamiya previously in the round of 16 pool. That was CS 6.5. That one was not as spaced. This one is much more spaced than that. More focused on dealing with the mechanical nature of it as opposed to reading. But it does have some tricky rhythms that you have to deal with.
Indeed, and pretty much everything which has to be said has been said. To see a 6.5 pick is gonna make some teams perhaps ban it because they're afraid of it, or perhaps pick it because they feel like they're superior to in CS 6.5, rather than having like these choices of free mods, hard rock or hidden on the CS5 map on hidden or CS 6.5 on hard rock. So in this case, it's forcing everyone on CS6. Gonna be an interesting pick for most people if they really want to take advantage of it. If not, then this option is still there. That's the important part.
For me, when I'm playing this, the hardest part I find is dealing with the streams, because some of them either like to change spacing halfway through, or some of them actually jump halfway through. So dealing with that aim change is tricky at this circle size, believe me. But that's where the specialists come in on this one.
Indeed, that's definitely where the specialists come in. But yeah, there's another map which definitely are for some specialists, which is gonna be the next map, which is sung by Hatsune Miku Sakura Sensei Icho Nashi, mapped by Lalarun. And it is a rather old map, 210 BPM, but pretty much old map in an essence. Kind of modernized by hard rock, so at least the reading aspect isn't too hard, because originally it is approach rate 9, but now with hard rock you have the stats of approach rate 10 to approach rate OD 10, and the standard CS 5.2 by having the CS4 on hard rock. And the important part about this map is, obviously, as I mentioned, it is old, so you can see the mapping style pretty much influencing players' cursor movement. It has really sharp angles and requires you to snap perfectly on the notes. And next to that, you also have to pretty much prepare and be careful of these sliders. You might underestimate them because you have all these notes to stack onto, the sometimes linear patterns. But then you have the sliders to also follow perfectly. But next to that, it even hits you with another shoe, which is going to be a solo part. You know, usually the entire map has a few bursts here and there, mostly just jumps, single tapping, but then it has a few bursts. And then there's a solo part, which has a little bit of a stream, I guess you could call it already, on 20 minutes. But the interesting thing is going to be after the stream, after the solo part, which is a sudden square which is almost full screen. Interestingly enough, after a spinner. So that's one part you need to prepare a lot. A lot.
Yeah, it's like dealing with those jump spikes. Always tricky. Going from low spacing to wide spacing is a skill in and of itself in swing tests. But yeah, I'm pretty much just going to echo what Force says. He's pretty much just said what I'm thinking. You see that stream just a moment ago, the way it sort of goes down and immediately switches 180 degrees and goes up at this speed. 210 is a speed people wouldn't really call fast, but it's fast enough that changing direction that quickly is pretty tricky.
And we did see the sudden square after the spinner, which I think a lot of people might underestimate or catch them off guard really, and get an easy break in there. So I think this might be a little bit too risky for some people. I can't really see it being hit too often. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen that many hard rock picks throughout the tournament so far. People have been generally avoiding that pool, and both of these maps have some pretty tricky gimmicks to them. So I don't see that trend changing, unless people really love EOS perhaps, because it's a tune that's a personal favourite for a lot of people. But CS 6.5 is a very situational pick, but we'll see how it goes. And on to the double time picks, the speedy picks. First one is actually going to be less about speed and more about aim, but it's got some pretty serious BPM to it. It's going to be Hip Song, an irreversible map on the insane difficulty. The numbers on this one, approach rate 8.7 with double time, which is around, I think it's just over approach rate 10, I think.
Yeah, like 10.1, something around that.
Ah, yeah. Circle size 4.2, overall difficulty of 9, that's a big deal. Beats per minute 120, which works out to 210 with, no,
it is 8 and then double time to 120, that's the interesting thing. It is 120 BPM after double time, so it's pretty much a 240 BPM.
Oh yeah, I looked at that and I was thinking, hang on, it's not that didn't work out. But yeah, I think it's just half BPM, isn't it? So it's essentially mapped like a 240 BPM, right?
Indeed.
So this one's more about dealing with fast aim. I don't think there's too many streams in this, but there are lots of wide jumps in this, lots of back and forths, which is a blessing to some, similar to others. It's a very personal thing.
Yeah, it's pretty much pattern heaven all the time. Patterns, and patterns, which is pretty much the aim aspect of this map. But then the one thing you definitely need to look out for is the OD9 on double time. It's gonna give you OD 10.3. So that's something you definitely need to, or I think rather it's 10.4 something, it might even be. I'm not too sure, we need to look at the OD calculation once again, because there's something wonky going on after having to deal with the fidelity. But it is definitely over 10, that's one thing I can tell you, and that is something most people might not be used to.
This one isn't too stream heavy, so it's not like you're dealing with a really high overall difficulty whilst having to deal with streams or anything. But still, even then, when you're dealing with a timing window that strict, even accuracy in single taps can be a bit of a challenge. So accuracy wars is something I'm expecting on this. I've seen the patterns, they're quite simple in their placement. Some tricky anti-jumps going on here and there. Anti-jumps being, of course, the opposite of jumps when spacing goes from being wide to being low all of a sudden. But outside of that, fairly simple, but some interesting elements to that one.
And we do see the next double time pick, which is going to be Narrow World Domination How To from the map Tune. And to be fair, that's pretty much where my notes end because of time issues. So Doomsday, I would like you to take over for this map.
Sure, no problem. Go over the numbers. The approach rate on this is 10.3, our first 10.3. That's AR9 with double time. Circle size 4, overall difficulty of 8. beats per minute of 226.5. So BPM isn't too high, pretty decently high, but slower than Hipsong. This one is, of course, the introduction of the super high approach rate double time picks, which is a specialty for many players at this stage. This one's less about dealing with wide jumps, but more about dealing with tricky patterns and more rhythmically intense patterns, which is going to test the reading of that really high approach rate for the most part. Lots of doubles or patterns of sliders going into sliders, that sort of thing. But less about mechanical skill, more about reading. If I recall, this one isn't too streamy. Actually, I think I already played this map once, and that was on no mod. So forgive me, but I don't think this map's terribly streamy going into it. But there's a lot of doubles and triples and whatnot.
Maybe. We do see some bursts here and there, but not really like death stream-ish things. So I believe this is more of a pick to kind of ease in the 10.3 in the map book.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm sure a lot of players have been like, where's my 10.3? I need my high AR, but hell, here you go. Actually, the last map is as well, because the last map is over approach rate 10 as well, so both DTs.
This time overcompensating for the guys who definitely want the approach rate 10 double time. Well, for the guys who don't like who do like high DPM but don't like high approach rate, there is still the Liqua Nomad map for you, the 240 BPM one. So there you go.
Aw. I guess you could take over the next one considering you missed that.
At least that one. At least even though if I have no notes for this one, I do have knowledge of this one. The Cosmo Oceanus map by Broccoli, which is gonna be the 196 DPM stream map for the Mappool on free mod, and it's gonna force people to pick either hidden or harbor, which is gonna be, I believe, around the same, because on hidden you have a lot of choke potential at the end. I did play this in a lot of tournaments, and I've seen people die at the end and pretty much lose the game. So that's something you need to look out for, especially on hidden. On hard rock, there's also the same kind of amount of choke potential because the circles are smaller, but at least you can kind of fix it more easily because you don't have the delay to work with. So if you're comfortable with hard rock, you can kind of save yourself in the moment, in heat of the moment at least. But if you mess up, you're pretty much dead for the rest of the map if you miss at the last week. But this is just going over the numbers. Approach rate 9.4, so pretty decent normal approach rate. CS4, OD 8.5, and 3 minutes and 40 seconds rounded up. And that is gonna be a really interesting map in general for people because it is streamy, but also requires you to aim properly on them. And either mod is gonna make this really difficult, and there's a lot of choke potential at the end. I don't know, I see it being not picked that often because of the potential, unless people are really confident in it too.
I just noticed that Deadbeat used my replay in it. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I actually think we'll see quite a bit of this one. For the no-mod players, I think it'll be okay. Of course, a bit like the Skystar map in the previous pool we just played. The mod players are going to be the sacrificial lambs on this one, bringing out the specialists. At this point, every team has one that can go either hidden or hard rock on this. I feel like it's quite a popular one, but as Force said, incredibly streamy. When you're dealing with hard rock, you're going to be dealing with some very wide spacing on that, and with hidden, having to track those wide streams when they've disappeared is tricky, because once you miss a note on hidden, you're pretty much screwed for the stream, so that's a big deal.
Indeed, I just kind of get flashbacks from previous tournament games where just people died on it because of the last stream, and then there's a slow part at the end, which isn't enough to revive you if you died at the last stream at the end. And it's not as brutal as like the approach 8 hidden pick last time around, but it is still pretty brutal and absolutely not fun for you or your team if you die there.
Yeah, it's rough. Some of the streams at the end are really quite nasty. I think at that point, when you're playing hard rock, it almost reaches the point where the hit circles don't even touch, it's that wide. So on hard rock, it's incredibly difficult to deal with that end. Very difficult for either mod, so choosing wisely is important in this.
Indeed, and it seems like Doomsday already has his choice in mind, which is going to be hard rock. Just judging by the replay.
You know, I might want to mix things up, you never know. Actually, no, it will probably be hard rock, to be honest. I love this map, it's so good.
Yeah, I can imagine. Someone who really likes streaming, and that last stream which you saw at the end, that's gonna be really detrimental. But Doomsday, I think we've got one of your most favorite maps coming up.
Oh, hell yeah. So, you know, people are wondering, yo, where's the AR8? I thought that, you know, this was the AR8 tournament. Well, here you go. This is Big Brother by Susumu Hirasawa by Jens on Kirby mixed difficulty. Yes, a infamous Kirby map is in free mod. The numbers for this one are approach rate 8, circle size 5, overall difficulty of 8, with the beats per minute of 190. So fairly long as well, just over 3 minutes in length. This is a traditional Kirby mix. For those who don't know what this means, Kirby mixes are old, incredibly difficult maps mapped by a mapper called Starrod Kirby, and his maps are generally known for having incredibly intricate patterns that constantly change spacing, tricky streams that go in patterns that are fairly unnatural to aim. It involves a lot of very stringent snapping to hit these notes. All in all, it's a map that doesn't follow modern natural flow. It's all about snapping to each note very strongly, and this one is full of tricky single tap patterns. And of course, at the end, this one has a very nasty difficulty spike, where it goes into loads of triples, into singles, and a couple of really nasty longer streams that are pretty spaced. But all in all, this is one that is targeted towards the hidden players. The hidden players have a nasty time on this. Many people would rather go hard rock to have an easier time snapping, I imagine. But that will make this CS 6.5, so it'll have an effect similar to that we saw on Nightmare in the round of 16, where people will go in hard rock to avoid the AR8 hidden.
Indeed,
so interesting to see.
As you mentioned, there are some space streams at the end, which might be a little bit risky with hard rock itself, but also really difficult with just hidden itself. So in any case, it is risky with either mod, but might give the advantage to the guy who is advantageous in terms of reading, or who has the strength in terms of reading. Because if you at least have this sacrificial lamps of hidden and hard rock, or just having 2 players on hard rock, you at least hopefully have 2 people on normal who can see it, but at least you hope to. I mean, big trouble if someone picks this against you and you don't really have someone who can play a Portrait 8.
Yeah, this is a must practice. This is one that a lot of teams will be pushing to practice, because if it appears, you need to be ready, because this map will destroy you if you're unfamiliar with it, or at least if you're not fully comfortable with it. So.
Yeah, well, we can see NFC being extremely vital for the winning team. Pretty much, that's gonna be a case for this one. We're not gonna see too many 4-wave season. It's like, yeah, well, this team just won because they had a 1% better accuracy. I don't think this is gonna be the case in here.
Go on, Fours.
And yeah, we do have this next free mod, which is really interesting, because the Mappools selectors thought, well, let's put something interesting in there, and yes, they did.
Oh wow, I just noticed something. Wow, CS2. Sorry, I just noticed that. I had to.
Yeah, it's a drum and bass song on CS2, which is really cool. This is obviously gonna actually give the advantage to hard rock, just because of the sake of normalizing the CS. It's gonna end up being CS 3.9 with hard rock, and having a high CS might actually screw some people up. So hidden obviously is gonna be easy in terms of, the circles are big and I can hit them more easily, kind of. but it's also pretty weird in terms of just I never play CS2, so I don't know really about that. It really depends, but some space triplets and the streams all around, I believe this might favor a little bit harder.
Yeah, 100%. I imagine we'll see this more on Hard Rock than Nomad at this level in the tournament, because, like I said, it's going to normalize the circle size. It's going to be something people find more comfortable dealing with circle size too.
Indeed, the only things to look out for, the space triplets and stuff like that on Hard Rock, is gonna make this a little bit harder. But Hidden is also pretty hard on it. I mean, if you just look at the stream, sometimes they're absolutely unforgiving, going left, right, and changing direction.
Lots of slider velocity changes in this one. That slider section looks pretty intense. I'm watching this for the first time. I've yet to play this, and that slider section looks pretty mean. I can see that being the counter to the Hard Rock pick, because that will make dealing with the Hard Rock circle size much harder. But this one just has a lot of gimmicks in it that make it tricky to read or, you know, to deal with it flow on.
Indeed, I can imagine some Hard Rocks on there just to, you know, be the sacrificial lambs, and then followed by the Nomads, who hopefully can perform well enough to give the EFC to their respective team. And I believe that is going to be it for this pick, and we're now gonna come in for the tiebreaker, which is gonna be Venetian Snares She Runs, mapped by Fergus. And Venetian Snares, if you don't know the artist, is a really cool artist, and has some really cool rhythms in there. But the maps in Osa are extremely difficult, because you have a bunch of kick sliders, really fast repeat sliders, and just it's not as easy to follow as your drum and bass song, just your standard one. And that on 224 BPM, and having some just throwing the numbers at you, we have approach at 9.3, CS4 OD9 on 224 BPM. Finger control, speed, endurance, it's really long. A lot of interesting parts in there. How about you, Doomsday? How do you feel about this map being in here?
This is, in my opinion, this is a stamina test more than anything else. The BPM is pretty quick. 224 is no slouch for a stamina test. But yeah, this one is one where it's going to take a lot of finger control, because it barely lets up. There's a couple of sections where it slows down, but for the most part, it's about 6 minutes of intense burst streams and tricky reading patterns, interspersed with lots of buzz sliders and really short sliders as well that can easily lead to silly breaks. And if you're reaching the tiebreaker point, having to deal with all this, dealing with the mental side of it is a heavy part of it as well, because, like I said, this map barely lets up, so it's very mentally exhausting to deal with. And those with the endurance to stick it through an entire match and then have to deal with this, the ones that can come out on top with a high combo are going to be the champions for the team.
Yeah, it's definitely a really intense map in that case. A little bit of a contrast to the last stage of the tournament, where we had a approach at 8 pick. But it's pretty much like 6 minutes of this. And, you know, just looking at it, it might not be too terribly difficult. It might be like, yeah, I guess I can do this. But then you remember that it's 6 minutes long, and a tiebreaker situation where you pretty much are like, well, I might get thrown out of the tournament if I lose this. Which might very well be a situation you might be in, Doomsday. I don't know. Who knows, maybe we see a tiebreaker against Brazil. I don't want to play this against Brazil.
After the last one, I'm like, done. Can we not? But it wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. I mean, I do love this map, though. I'm a big fan of this kind of map. Getting into this one a bit more technically, this one's characterized by like 2 different kinds of section. Like half of the map are down to dealing with lots of short sliders in bursts, whereas the other half is dealing with constant 5-note bursts. You have a 5-note burst with a small gap and another 5-note burst. That's the bit that's going to be testing your speed the most, because going into a fast like alternation little burst stream like that, and then having to readjust your fingers to go for another one for a map this long is one of the more difficult little things of this that the players are going to be looking out for. So that is pretty much the map in a nutshell. Just this all the way through.
And I just want to mention, there is a reason why Raffles has been picked for this Tiebreaker showcase replay. Because if you have seen this map, you're pretty much in the top 5. Because there are only 4 FCs on this map. And pretty much one of them is Raffles. A tournament player currently in the ODC. And another one is Red Pixel. Russia is still in the tournament, are they?
Yeah, they are, I think. They won earlier, so yes, they are.
Yeah, so we do see people from the Russian side actually being pretty good on it. We see Berlin, for example, also in the top 10. So the Russian side, if it gets to the tiebreaker, they are definitely ready. But, you know, just a bunch of misses, and the maximum combo is 2,800. And the accuracies across the board are just sometimes lacking, because it's just understandable for this kind of map. You do need a specific type of player for this. I definitely look forward to seeing the UK versus Brazil match, where we see a tiebreaker, hopefully, and see Brazil probably emerge out victorious.
Well, you know, it's like, Brazil are so good at speed. I mean, they're going to be scary on this map. They really are. Hey, UK's got the speed players, so if we see a tiebreaker on that, it's going to be pretty beast. But yeah, this map is incredibly difficult, and not many FCs at all. It is interesting to see this tiebreaker not be an aim-intensive one for the second week in a row. That's interesting. So it's bringing out less about the the pure mechanical ability of your players in terms of jumps, which is what a lot of the maps test in one way, shape, or another. But the tiebreaker for this one is where you bring out your speed players. That's what I'd say. That's pretty much what this one's based around, and every team at this point have those. Normally you bring out the aim players for tiebreakers, because that's the main port of call for many tiebreakers. But this one's a bit more specialised.
So pretty much following the kind of same, I guess you could almost say, philosophy. The last time around we pretty much had a push 8 centric pool. Now we currently do have a rather balanced pool with less approach at 8 than any other stage in the tournament before. But for that we suddenly have speed players coming in, perhaps, and shining through in this stage.
So the replay is just about to wrap up. So that amount of score, 172 million. Of course, with score V2, that scales down, but like just puts into context that just how intense this map is. That combo gets incredibly high on this one. A pretty intense tiebreaker, one that people are going to be knackered. They're going to be so tired after this if they ever reach it. And of course, don't forget, losers bracket players, if they hit the tiebreaker in their first match, they have another one to play, I believe, on the same weekend. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but that'll be interesting to see how they deal with that.
But I believe that was it for the day. And that was it for the quarterfinals. We're gonna see you guys in the semifinals next week with some more losers bracket and winners bracket matches. And hopefully the teams are gonna practice during the week and are gonna give you some exciting and fantastic matches in the weekend.
Yeah, some of the matches coming up are gonna be pretty beast. I mean, we've had a bunch of great matches, and it can only get better from here. So hopefully you guys join us for that. It's been great commentating with you, Falls. Always fun, man.
Yeah, it was same, and I hope you guys will enjoy the next matches in the next week and 2. So it is Force and Doomsday signing off.